All right, there's a couple different ways to set up MapStruct for its annotation processing. And we kind of get that out of the bag using JHipster, but there's a couple of important things that I want to point out. So you can see here on line 187, this is where JHipster has set up the dependency for MapStruct, but they actually set up the MapStruct configuration in a separate Gradle file. This gets imported. So this applies to the MapStruct plugin, and these two dependencies here are annotation processors. And by annotation processors, so what's happening is MapStruct defines these classes called mappers. And let's take a look at the RFB event mapper. So this sets up the mapping for us. With MapStruct, all we do is declare the interface, and then through annotation processing, which is a hook into the Java compiler, it's going to generate these classes for us. So if we look at the build output and the classes, come down here, service, mapper. So now we can see this component, it gets annotated as a Spring component, so it gets auto-wired into the Spring context. You can see how it's setting up these different mappers for us to do transformations to and from data transfer objects. So I think this is a good design pattern. That's why I enabled it in the project. But this is all generated code for us. Now, it does cause us a couple of problems here. Typically, what you want to do is come into your settings in IntelliJ and come down here to your compiler and make sure that you enable annotation processing. And this applies to both MapStruct and Project Lombok, so you definitely need to do this. But I want to point out, if you're running from the command line, so you come up here, I'm going to start up Spring Boot from the command line. I do have the dialog set up for IntelliJ to run it. And what you can see, so we're going to start up and expect it to blow up here. Yep. Now we're getting that it can't find an instance of that mapper. And this is currently a bug inside of IntelliJ. It's a known problem. I did some research on it. And let's take a look at see what IntelliJ version I am running. You can see I'm on 2017.2. Now this is an open issue with MapStruct and Gradle and IntelliJ, specifically that combination. I'm using, on a different project, I'm using MapStruct and Maven, and it's working okay. So this is specific to Gradle and IntelliJ, the way IntelliJ is working with Gradle to pick up the annotations. So if you do see this, it's because you're running from IntelliJ and this issue has not been fixed. However, if you come over to a command line and you just do Gradle W, and this is actually in the README, so if you look at the README, I'm going to toggle over to that while this is coming up. You can see in the README instructions that that's how we're supposed to be running it, is from the command line. And we can see that this is going to start up normally because we are executing via Gradle, and Gradle is working properly. So everything starts up normally because we're going through the classes that are getting generated by Gradle. And the problem is with IntelliJ and how IntelliJ is detecting classes and compiling those classes via Gradle and not picking up those annotation processors from MapStruct. So if you see that problem, see this problem here where the mappers are not getting brought up, it's because this bug still exists inside of IntelliJ. So just making you aware of that. Hopefully they'll fix this and this portion of the video won't be applicable anymore. But if you hit this problem, just run from the command line and you'll be all set.